Okay, so welcome everybody. It's lovely to see you on the call. Thank you so much for joining us. My name's Justin Tipper. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Justin Tipper. I am a corporate trainer and a coach and a therapist, mainly working on the Isle of Man, but also in the UK. And I work with both private and corporate clients. This webinar is a very condensed version of our Entrepreneur's Journey weekend retreat. And as we go through this, and we talk about Jan will talk about her stories and her experiences, and we'll be looking at the Entrepreneur's Journey map as well. What I'd like you to do is I'd like to think about your own situation and what may have happened to you in the past, or what you're in the middle of now. And that may give rise to questions that you have, we hope. Jan and I devised the Entrepreneur's Journey on the back of a presentation that I did where I was talking about the hero's journey, which you may have heard of, which is a story structure devised by an anthropologist in the early 20th century called Joseph Campbell. What he was doing is he was going around the world and collecting folk tales and mythic stories and stories that were handed down from one generation to another in order to maintain the values and beliefs of a culture. What he found was that there was a consistent structure in all of the stories around the world, where human beings told stories of their heroes and their important people. There is a common structure to all of the stories. Now, I was explaining this in the presentation I was giving, and at the end, Jan said to me, you know, you've just described my journey in business. So we decided to use the hero's journey, and we have created the entrepreneur's journey in order to help people to navigate through their own entrepreneurial journey.
Absolutely. Thank you, Justin. So my name's Jan Tinsley. I'm a businesswoman, an entrepreneur, and I'm a coach, consultant, mentor, whatever, or somebody you can have a chat with and a coffee if you want to talk about business, because I just love business. So there's three little things you need to know about me. One is I've got a tremor in my right hand, and I'm sharing that with you because if you see me reaching for a drink and you think that I'm actually desperate for a G&T, I promise you that is not the case. I have a tremor in my right hand. It's a nightmare in the morning because when I'm trying to put my mascara on, but it's really handy when I start to brush my teeth, because I just put the toothbrush in and away I go. No, I'm joking. So the other thing you need to know about me is that I have ridden an ostrich. Now, the reason I share this story, you might think this is a bit bizarre, but I really have ridden an ostrich. And what this does for me is it gives me so much credibility with my grandchildren. They think it's so cool that their granny has ridden an ostrich. And the reason that I'm telling you that is because it sort of describes a bit about me. I love the fact I'm a family person. I have 2 daughters, 7 grandchildren. I absolutely adore my family. My values are based in the family values. And it's really, really important to me. But I also love business. And so what I feel happens in my life is, so if I was, say, at a board table, I'm looking at the humans, I'm looking at the people around there. When I'm doing business, I'm grounded. I understand how people work. I know that somebody's had to do the school run, or somebody's got to take the dog to the vet, or whatever. And I feel that those values, I'm better at both because of each other. So my sort of family values are great in business, and my business interests keep me vital as a granny, as a daughter, as a friend, or whatever. So that's where I'm coming from, and that's why I told you that I have ridden an ostrich. And the other thing you need to know about me is, as you probably tell, I am quite old. And the reason I'm saying that is because the stories that I'm sharing with you are stories of my life and a whole lot of experience. And as we've called this sort of 40 years in 40 minutes, that's what we're going to have a go at doing. So shall I tell you a story? a long, long time ago in a land far, far away. Well, actually, it was a long, long time ago, and it wasn't so far away because it was on the Shropshire-Welsh border. So it was over in the UK, right on the Shropshire-Welsh border. Me and my husband, 2 little girls, and we owned a hotel, a lovely little country house hotel, right on the Offa's Dyke path that divides England and Wales. A beautiful setting for tennis courts, squash courts, a tiny little outdoor swimming pool, 40-seater restaurant, roughly 10 bedrooms. And this was something that we had worked for, even as we were quite young, even then, but it was sort of a dream venture. This is what we got. And by we never know really, bad judgment, naivety, bad luck, whatever, we ended up losing the whole thing. And this is a really sort of devastating thing to happen for anyone. And I'll sort of elaborate on that story a little bit as we sort of go along. But in the meantime, it's just a good place to know that in business, it's been a roller coaster, and we've had some high points, we've had some really low points. And, one way or another, you get through them, you do get through them. Plus, there's so much learning in this. So we're going to put the image of our little diagram called the entrepreneur's journey, and then we're going to just take you through each section. And as Justin said, let this overlay on your life, on your experience, on your business. So we start up in the top right-hand corner as you're looking at it with the call. You can see the start, you can see the man with his rucksack and his map, and off you go on your adventure. And this applies really for anyone who's had a calling, anyone who's had an idea, or maybe you're already in business and you're changing direction, you've come up with another idea. And it's the sort of thing that it's sort of like an itch that needs scratching, or you've got this idea and it's something that you keep talking about. And for me, the one little story that I want to share with you is that this happened to me when I was 15 years old. So at 15, I decided I wanted to do business studies. I wanted to go and study business studies. Now, 15 for me was a very long time ago. Excuse me. And in those days, the business studies was not on the curriculum at all. It wasn't taught. And so it was, obviously I had to find another way of being able to study business studies. And people were really sort of bemused by this because I had no business model to look at. My mum was a stay-at-home housewife. My dad worked on a farm. I didn't have any relations or anyone I knew really that was in business. But for some reason, this was something that I wanted to do. And I had to really push to try and do that at that stage, but it wouldn't go away. And despite even the teachers trying to persuade me, and family questioning me, and colleagues sort of wondering what the heck I was talking about, I knew that this was something that I wanted to follow. And I'm glad to say at this ripe old age now, I know that at 15, that was the right decision, because that started me on the path for something that I have truly loved and enjoyed for all of my life. So that's the call. And what we suggest that people do here is to, if you like, is there a sort of tool that you could use to help you when you're in this situation? And the biggest thing that we found is that you need clarity. You need that clarity. You really need to sit and work out, like, what am I doing? What am I feeling? What do I really want? Why do I want it? Those sort of things. And that's the thing that I think you have to hold on to and get really clear. So Justin's now going to pick up. This is how we're going to do this, the format of this little webinar, is that Justin is then going to explain that structure and then give you a question to ponder. Justin.
So the call, The call is when we hear a calling related to our identity or a mission or an idea, and it's something that we feel that we must do. If we ignore a call, and we can ignore it or we can accept it, but if we ignore it, what tends to happen is that the call just gets louder or more insistent. It's really a call to adventure. So the kind of thing we're talking about here is when you have a great business idea and it just kind of won't go away. You may have heard people down the pub just talking about the same things over and over again in terms of their business ideas or something, a process or a new mission that they feel that they have. And this is the calling. It really gets inside of us. And even though it can seem to be something external, and it really gets a hold of us, and it's something that we feel that we have to do. So the question here for you to ponder is, what specific calling are you hearing right now regarding a mission or possibly a business idea that you have? What's persistent? What keeps coming up, or what can't you get out of your head?
Great stuff. Thanks, Justin. So the next part of that that cycle, if you like, is the threshold. So this is the point where you are going to go from your comfort zone, if you like, into your very uncomfortable zone, or from your known world into the unknown. And for me, it's just about, I'm just sharing some of my experiences to give you some examples. Crossing the threshold, it can, you're doing it all the time in business because you are making decisions all the time in business. And so you're having to cross the thresholds. But the main thing to remember about some thresholds is you can't cross a canyon in 2 steps. So you've got that canyon, and if you try and do it in 2 steps, so some things, some thresholds are really big, and it's just got to do. You've got to take that leap, and you've got to go all the way across. Others aren't so traumatic, but there's decisions to be made as you go along the way, and they might be small steps, they might be different directions, whatever it is. But crossing the thresholds are things like for myself, I think about when I was expecting my first daughter, I did give up work, and everyone around me was just like, oh my goodness, why do you do this? And you take maternity leave and think about it and whatever. But it was a decision that I wanted to take, and I'd worked really hard to get to where I was, but it was almost like a no-brainer. It was like, that's it. But of course, that comes with all other kinds of issues and challenges. Buying our first business was a massive threshold cross, if you like, cross the threshold, because we'd got one baby at that time, we'd got another one on the way. Interest rates was 17%. We couldn't pay our mortgage, and so that's when we started our first business. And you think, what a crazy thing to do. Who starts a business in those circumstances and interest rates are 17%? But we took the decision, and that huge leap. Another one is like when we bought the hotel. So when we'd come from what we were doing and then to buy this like amazing hotel, I can remember the first night we slept in it, and we actually slept in the attic. So they'd partly done a renovation, a conversion up there. And what we did is we put a double bed one side of this huge eave, and we put 2 single beds on the other side, and the 4 of us sort of slept up there, and you had to go under the eave to get to the girls. And I remember lying there, staring up, looking at the eaves of the attic, and literally saying out loud, oh my, what have we done? It's like, and you've crossed that point, you've made the loan, it's you're doing it. And in another one of our businesses, John and I were the sort of main focus of the business, and we decided to take on people because we were covering the whole of the UK. And so we decided to take on recruit 3 people for different parts of the country, and they all needed cars. And I can remember, I don't think I had a tremor in my right hand at that time, but I can tell you my hand was absolutely trembling when I signed a lease for 3 cars to put these 3 ladies on the road. So, you know, these are the sort of things that we are faced with in business. These are the sort of decisions that you have to make. These are the sort of thresholds that have to be crossed. And the thing when me and Justin were talking about this, we think, wow, what's the ingredient that's going to help somebody when they've got these kinds of decisions? What's the thing? What's the tool? What's the framework? Whatever. And the thing we came up with more than anything was mindset. And so if you've read about mindset, there's a brilliant book on mindset by Carol Dweck. She's sort of like the expert. You can have all sorts of mindsets. You can have an abundant mindset. You can have a winning mindset. You can have a whatever kind of mindset. But the 2 that we like to concentrate on is the difference between like a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. So people in business who maybe are a bit stuck, then we discuss and explore how to move across into a growth mindset, because it's the mindset here, it's the courage that you need, it's the know-how, and of course you need to do your pros and cons and looking at all the answers. But usually when you end up making a decision like this, it's a feeling. It's a feeling, and you can look at all the downside and you can look at all the upside and you think, well, what the heck, I'm going to do it anyway.
So accepting the call leads to a point of no return. We cross from our known world, our comfort zone, into very much the unknown, into unknown territory. And there may be guardians of the threshold, or boundaries, or obstacles that we have to overcome. I remember at the end of the 20th century, 1999, I went from being employed in financial services to being self-employed. So that was a huge threshold for me to cover, because I really knew nothing about running my own business. So this part of the journey requires growth on our part. It requires attributes or attitudes like courage and discipline, and also imagination as well, in order that we can navigate this part of the journey. So a question we can ask ourselves now is, in order to cross the threshold, what kind of attitudes do I have to cultivate? What kind of mindset do I have to have in order to move myself courageously and purposefully onto the challenges?
And so you'll see the next part of the cycle is exactly what Justin's just mentioned, the challenges. And most of you are in business and you'll totally recognize this. And they're constant and they're relentless, but they're also there to inform us and to educate us. And in this part, I just share a couple of stories in terms of challenges, because it sort of puts it in perspective, and I'm sure you'll be thinking about your own challenges. We, in 2 separate businesses, funny, we were talking earlier about the weather and flooding. In 2 separate businesses, we had floods. We had one in July when there was a most incredible thunderstorm, and we had our house had a cellar, and it literally filled the cellar. And in another one, actually in the hotel, in the January, there was a very fast thaw, and the brook that ran along the side of the hotel, actually a culvert got blocked, and the whole brook came in through the back door, right through the hotel, and out through the front door, and took the rest of the driveway down. You know, these sort of things happen when you're in business. And I mean, there's so many other ones. Obviously, losing the hotel, that in itself was a massive challenge, and we had to completely reinvent ourselves, you know, after that. the first recession, as I said, buying your first business in 17% interest. And blow me if it sort of doesn't go and happen again, because this is what happens in cycles. In another one of our businesses, we ended up doing a property development, and that we sort of started at end of 2006. I think we ended up buying it 2007, getting all the plans ready. Property was so buoyant then. I mean, you just couldn't go wrong with property. Prices were high. You could buy, you could renovate, you could sell. It was just so let's say so buoyant, so good. And so we ended up doing that in just the end of 2006. In 2007, what happened in 2008? The biggest property crash for absolute years and years, and the whole, you're up to your eyes in debt, and suddenly you find that there are no sales, and you really have to think on your feet and get very, very, very creative. So in challenges, we're looking for tools, and of course in business there are spreadsheets, there are frameworks, there are matrix, there are all kinds of things that you can sort of lean on, and what we've done is to look at two sort of extremes, and that is looking at how you could instantly leverage something in your business when there's a challenge. So what do you do? And for us, for example, when we'd borrowed so much money, I'm talking like millions, to do a huge property renovation, and suddenly the banks, the property market has collapsed. The banks are pulling businesses, they're closing down businesses, they're putting businesses into administration, because, and our model was that we would build and we would sell and we would pay the bank back, and suddenly we have no means of paying the bank back. So what we did was we made a set of a rental company, and we furnished 3 of the apartments that we were doing, and we rented them. And so then I went to the bank and said, look, I've got money coming in here, I can service this debt. And they were, wasn't quite enough what they wanted to see. So I did 4 more. And so with 7 apartments rented, I was able to go back to the bank and say, look, I can service this debt. Do not close me down. This is not fair. I need you to renew the facility, because we'd only thought it was going to be a short-term facility. I need you to renew the facility, and every 6 months, well, actually every 5 months, I gave them a spreadsheet, and I could forecast my income, because the rentals just went like that, because people were buying, so people were renting. So, you've really got to think on your feet and come up with ideas. So it's good to look at something you can do sort of instantly, but it's good to look at something you could do perhaps more long term in terms of diversifying. So these are the sort of tools that you might want to be looking at. And if you're diversifying, you want to know exactly where are you going with this. Is it the same product? Is it into a new market? Is it a different market? Is it a different product? All those things to consider as part of your challenges.
So this is really the road of trials. On the road, we face demons and dragons, often our own and internally created. For example, our own doubts and fears about our abilities. I remember some while ago, I started a company, a limited company, with a partner. It was a training development company. And it wasn't until we were about 18 months in that I realized he had a completely different idea about what he wanted to achieve as part of this company that I did. I needed an income from this. And after a year or so, we had made hardly any money. And I was very concerned about it and really quite confused about it. And it turned out that he didn't need an income from this, because he had directorships and other income from elsewhere. So he was only interested in the interesting projects, or going to meetings and talking about the kind of stuff that we talked about to other people. He wasn't really pushing for any kind of income. So that was a huge learning for me. Really the road of trials is where we grow the most. So we grow new skills, we find allies, as well as those demons and dragons. So a question here that we can ask ourselves, and I know this will go for everybody, you'll have an answer to this definitely, is what dragons are you currently dealing with?
Excellent. Yes. So this takes us to the rather scary bit of this cycle, the abyss, where sometimes things really don't go to plan, and the wheels come off, and that's happened. We've been very close to it, we've been in it, and a couple of times we've completely skirted over it. We've gone from the challenges and everything and managed to escape that bit. The abyss isn't compulsory, by the way. You don't have to do this bit. But sometimes you find yourself in that situation, and for us, as this is a sort of story event, the thing what happened with the hotel, it actually ended up getting worse before it got better, because what had happened was we wanted to there was a beautiful walled garden at the hotel, and we wanted to build some log cabins in it because we didn't have many rooms. So we thought, well, this would expand the occupancy, and we've got some lovely facilities. It's in 4 acres of grounds. And we came across, I'll just do a very short version of this, was the thing at the time called the BES scheme, Business Expansion Scheme. And what it was that people could invest, and if they invested in a project like this, they would get special concessions and some tax relief and so on. So our accountant organised this for us, and we had to go and set up a limited company so that we could do this, so that investors could invest. And that's what we did. And we went, we set up the limited company, and then after about 11 months, we knew the money was there. We'd got all the plans drawn for the log cabins. And we went, I was having a chat with the accountant. I was thinking, what's happening? When are we going to be able to do this? We knew the money was there. We knew the limited company was set up. Like, we'd got all the plans, all that had gone through. What are we waiting for? And then I got a set of accounts, and I noticed on the set account a few anomalies, but I phoned the accountant and said, I said, look, I hope you don't mind, but there's a few things here that I just can't make any sense of. I can remember this guy's name as well. Gosh, I better not say it. And I said, well, for starters, I said, we've got, it's the limited company accounts. John and I aren't down as shareholders. And he said, no, you're not. So I could feel the blood sort of draining from my head down to my ankles. And I said, what do you mean? We're not down as shareholders, or we're not shareholders? He said, you're not shareholders. And that was the start of a whole unraveling process. And it took us a while to try and rectify it, which we never did. And we still kept on running the hotel. And we ended up going on the promise that we would have our money. Because I stayed for 11 months. John got a job selling paint, for heaven's sake. And he did that because then he got a car. He got a car with the job. And so we ended up sort of coming away from the hotel, leaving the hotel on the promise that we would get everything. And waiting and waiting and waiting, they put somebody in to run it. And within 4 months, the place was bankrupt. And that was it. We'd lost the lot. So that was our sort of abyss, and getting out of that. Where do you go to? A small young couple, 2 small children, lost everything that you'd ever sort of worked for. And this is where you start getting eaten up with issues of trust, of doubt, of beliefs, of fear, of rage, of guilt, of failure, all these things. It's just so hard being in this place. And what we discussed that would be a good thing to talk about in this stage, because you think, well, where is there a structure? Where is there a matrix? How do you get out of this? But it gets very personal. And so it is about you. This is about you. And this is the time when you start looking at your own beliefs, your identity, your values, all those things. And this is the sort of work that we like to do with people, because it's building you up as a person when you're in this situation to be able to get out of it.
So this part of the journey is the pit of despair. it's the deepest and darkest point where all hope seems lost. You can't see any way forward. You feel very alone, and you're weighed down by your own failures and guilt. And it represents the journey's most difficult stage. So a question we can ask ourselves here is, how do you maintain hope when there seems no way forward?
And my dear old mum used to say, it's at times like this that something comes to you. And you know what? I think she's right. Because I've seen that in people. I've seen people, you think, how do they cope with these situations and real traumas and obviously health challenges, not just business, but family and all kinds of things. And for us, thankfully, that did sort of happen for us, because I think the one thing you have to remember is, like, you never give up hope. That was the thing. And thankfully my mum was right, because something did come to us. I think that's just your automatic survival instinct. You do whatever it takes because you're in a situation and you know you've got to survive. And for us, it was about surviving and finding a place to live and putting food on the table and earning money and everything else. So for us, it was a huge personal development journey. We just was looking at everything. I started studying again. John was started to retrain. We reinvented ourselves. We did courses. We listened to tapes. We did, so many things. We didn't really know where we were going. So it was a bit of an exercise, like throw as much mud at the wall as you can and let's see what sticks. And that culminated in us setting up another business, and that was in financial services. So we were able to set up another business as a result of this work. I did some postgraduate studies. John got his IFA qualifications. We were able to set up in a cowshed, yes, and we were very focused on what we were doing by that point, because of course this didn't happen overnight. This took some time and quite a few jobs, and some unusual ones at that, but it's all part of building us back up, if you like, building us back up together. And in this part, there are some tools, there are some ways, like say if you're in business, they want a business plan, or they want your strategy as your strategic plan or something like that. And there are tools that you can use like this. And one of them we use, actually, we've got a little free resource that you can just click on and download. And it's called the one-page strategic plan. And you can literally create a strategy on one page for your business without it being, an academic masterpiece. It's just a way forward. That's what strategy is. And we can explore so many other things at this point while you are reinventing yourself, coming up with new ideas, striving forward, surviving, but thriving in this transformation phase.
So as part of this phase, this part of the journey, our old self, or at least parts of it, we have to let go of those in order that our new identity and our new self can emerge. So we can transform negative circumstances, negative situations, negative energy into some kind of special resource, or use it as motivation to go in a new direction that we wouldn't have gone in before. So during this stage, we develop new skills, new tools, and new resources necessary to continue our quest, our adventure. So a question we can ask here is, what specific part of your old self do you need to let go of so that the new version of you can emerge?
Yes, and on our lovely diagram, you can see it goes into the sort of revelation and the atonement, as it's called. And this is where, you are making those changes and you are working towards your gift, your reward, your prize, whatever that might be. And for us, we were very, very fortunate that we built a business and it was took over 10 years. Some people used to say to me, gosh, that was an overnight success, Jan. Yes, it took almost exactly 10 years. That's how overnight it was. But we did end up selling that company, and we did really, really well with that. And that in itself is a whole different story. So you what you do is at that point is you realize that achievement, and you're moving towards this prize, this reward, and you're thinking about yourself, and you're understanding the changes. So for me, I felt like I was the same person, but I was different, and that, if that makes sense at all. And the other thing that it makes you realize is you look back on this journey and you realize that what went before is what's brought you to now. So all of your lessons have been in that journey. All of that learning have been in that journey. It's all brought you to where you are now. And for us, we certainly knew what it was like to be without money. And then suddenly we had money. And when we were talking about this in terms of looking at the journey, we thought this was a really good, because when we did sell the company, you know, to be honest, we did go a bit bonkers for just a little while until we were completely rounded again. Because of course, at the point where you get to the end of the journey with your prize, and you sort of think, oh, and they all lived happily ever after, and then it's until the next call, or until the next idea. And of course, what we went and did is to invest most of what we got and start again and do this big property development, and then almost ended up down in the abyss again, and with the risk of sort of losing it all again. So the important bit that we thought was worth looking at here, two things actually, and that is the mindset around money. So it was really important to look at money. There's a great book called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, I think his name is. It's a brilliant book if you want to have a little read of that. It sounds really boring, I know, but I've read this book, and twice I actually laughed out loud. You know, who knew the psychology of money could make you laugh? So money is a good thing, and also carrying on with that self-coaching and some of the techniques of anchoring, so that you know where to return when these challenges come up again, because you know you've done it before, you've had this experience, you've got through through it.
So in these last stages of our journey, our adventure, we have come to realize what it was all about, and the fact that what we've been through, hard as it was necessary in order for us to end up where we actually are now, with the gifts and the treasures and whatever it is that we've created that we're going to bring back to the world, that's going to make it a better place. Here also we find some sense of completion and of peace of mind, is that yes, okay, it was all worth it. The past struggles that we went through have ended up in a very positive way. And you know, there's that old saying is that in the end everything will be well, and all things will be well, and if they're not well, then it's not the end. So a question we can ask ourselves here is, what specific gifts or treasures have you brought back to the world?
Lovely. And so here we are at the return. You return home with your gifts, your prize, your treasures, you know, feeling with those same values, with being different, feeling different. And the real learning here, when you look back on this, is you must rejoice in the journey. That's what it's all about. It's not always about the destination. The destination isn't always what you think it's going to be. And sometimes the destination is actually a bit of a disappointment. So the important thing at this point is that you can look back this and really relish the journey, but also accept that most of it is about the journey. It's really important to remember this. So when you are looking at this sort of thing, when you're at this point, you're coming to this point of return, you are going to move on again. And so here it's really worth making some kind of plan and really turning your why, because you end up deciding why you want to do something. It's based on all the learning that you've had on your previous journey or your journey up to now. And you're turning that why into a what. And this is where you start making a plan, and you can make quite an expansive plan, and then you can sort of narrow it down and really give yourself some proper targets and proper measurements to be able to say, this is what I am going to do. And one of the a really cool way of perhaps if you're not absolutely sure in terms of where you're going and you need some kind of North Star, is to write yourself the perfect testimonial. So write something that you would love to receive from someone, to be able to say, this was the experience with your company. It was amazing. The promotion material I received, and the processes and your staff are absolutely amazing, and everything that we've done, the whole customer journey was magnificent. You know, write that testimonial, the sort of thing that you want to receive from somebody about the experience that you're going to offer next.
Very good.
Okay, just to finish off, I hope that this webinar has helped you appreciate your own journey a little bit more, and to help you understand that it doesn't have to be this stressful uncertainty all the time, but that it can be a really meaningful adventure.
Thank you so much. Questions or comments, ladies and gentlemen?